All right, everybody. Hope y'all have had a good week so far. Thanks for joining in for another live. I'm pretty excited about tonight's topics. There was some pretty big news that came out on multiple fronts this week. I think we're probably only going to get to one of those stories, and we'll cover the others next week. But if you're joining in, make sure to put in the comments where you're joining from. That's going to help us. Again, that helps us moving forward. Just know where folks are joining from, how to prepare material that's most useful for you. If you're watching in the future, make sure to do that as well, because again, that's going to help us as we prepare. And honestly, it's just interesting to see that, see where folks are joining from. So uh, next level looks like next level is joining from Raleigh. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I apologize ahead of time for my voice. I think I said last week our kids they got sick over Thanksgiving, and looks like Randy is joining from Long Island, New York. Awesome, thanks for joining, Randy. Um, and I still whatever they had is still lingering, so I will be coughing. I'm probably going to be sniffling some as we go. So appreciate y'all bearing with me on that. Um, awesome, yeah, Randy. I'm glad you're catching it too. Thanks for tuning in. So there was some really big news that came out this week. Disney announced a brand new community that they will be building in Chatham County. So you may be asking, where in the world is Chatham County? I'm going to cover that. But I'm going to walk through a couple things. I'm going to walk through one, why this is big news. Two, what the community is going to look like, at least what we know at this point. A lot of folks have asked us about prices, what are prices going to look like. Way too early to know, but they are building another community in California that gives us a little bit of a peek into what we may be dealing with here. And then why they're doing this, period. Like, what does Disney have to do with residential development? So, anyway, so that's probably going to be a lot of our time tonight is kind of walking through this. But with Chatham County, so I'm going to put a map up on the screen here so y'all can see. Chatham County is one of those counties that doesn't get a whole lot of press, but it probably should, honestly. There is a lot going on in Chatham County. So let me go here. All right, there we go. So if you're looking at this map, all right, you should be able to, yeah, you can see my cursor there. Chatham County, you got Chapel Hill up here. You've got Raleigh down here. You've got Durham up here on the north side. Chatham County is essentially this area south of Chapel Hill. So basically, from this southern point down to, you've got Siler City out over here, comes down here and goes back up. So this is Chatham County. Major locations within Chatham County: Siler City, Pittsburgh. Those are going to be some of the largest areas within Chatham County. Chapel Hill. So like up here, you've got Briar Chapel, which is a really large neighborhood. Pretty much like a sister neighborhood to Wendell Falls. If you ever heard us talk about Wendell Falls, Briar Chapel is very similar to Wendell Falls, but on the west side. Yep. Next level. Next level said, is that near Pittsburgh? It absolutely is near Pittsburgh. Governor's Club, also Chatham County, but Chapel Hill. So Briar Chapel, Governor's Club, those are Chapel Hill addresses, but they're in Chatham County. So so Chatham County is on the west side of the triangle, but it is a rapidly developing area. And so some of the major developments that have popped up in the triangle over the last several years have been within Chatham County. So you think of areas like, or companies like VinFast, which is the Vietnamese electric vehicle company. They're bringing thousands of jobs into the area. That's in Chatham County. If you've heard about Wolfspeed setting up a manufacturing plant, in the triangle to produce semiconductors. That's in Chatham County. So those two companies alone are bringing about $9 billion worth of investments, um, and also about 9,000 jobs into the area. So there's a significant amount of investment going on within Chatham County, within this region. Um, that's just, you know, really, really impressive. So they kind of put that to scale. You know, Apple's bringing, I think it's around 1,800 jobs into the area. These two companies in Chatham County are bringing about 9,000 jobs into Chatham County. So kind of puts, you know, obviously Apple gets a lot of press. They should get a lot of press. Them coming to the area is a really big deal. But there is a lot of development going on in the Chatham County area. And part of that is obviously going to be this. Um, so that's where Chatham County is. Let me pull up. There we go. Go down here. There we go. All right. So why is Disney coming to the area a big deal? I think one, you know, I think it really confirms the growth in the triangle. You know, I'm making some assumptions here, but I'm going to assume Disney is doing their research in where they're putting their locations, right? They're not just putting a map on a board, throwing a dart at it, and deciding where they're going to put their next neighborhood. I say next neighborhood because this is the second one that they've announced. First one was in California. This is the next one, which will be in our area. So I think that's just a good sign. Not that this area needs further confirmation that growth is happening here, but I think that's a good sign that, you know, companies like VinFast, companies like Apple, companies like Wolfspeed, companies like Disney are betting on this area, not just making it now, but making it down the road. Because if you think about a neighborhood like this that Disney's attaching their names to, it's really for the long haul, right? Like you don't want to build a neighbor as a company, you don't want to build a neighborhood like this in a city that's on decline, that in 10, 20 years is not going to be a place that's desirable to live. You want to put these locations in areas that are the opposite of that, that are continuing to grow, continuing to thrive, continuing to boom over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Um, and so I think it's just a good sign that these larger companies that have large research departments of where should we put major assets of our companies, that they're choosing our area. So, and if you look at it, you know, Disney's announced two of these. First one was in California. We're the second location. And I think that's a big deal, right? Like they could have chosen any other location as number two, but they chose Chatham County right here in the triangle. So I think that's a pretty cool, I think it's a pretty cool thing. So what is the neighborhood going to look like? That is a great question that I'm not 100% sure the answer to, but I am going to show. I'm going to pull up here. So I'm switching screens a lot because I want to show y'all some of this. I'm going to show y'all the concept art here of what it's going to look like. At least what they're saying it's going to look like. This concept art, I mean, this stuff can change. So to be honest, this is going to be, I mean, this is, you know, they're not talking about doing really breaking ground until, or at least starting sales until 2027. So I'm not even sure when they would break ground. But this is the concept art that they put out. I don't really know. I mean, concept art, like I don't even know what to really do with this image of what it looks like, because there's a couple pools, there's some houses. Like it doesn't really tell you a whole heck of a lot of what this area is going to look like, what it's going to be. But this is going to be a massive community. So Disney did announce it's going to be 4,000. It's going to be a 4,000 unit development. To put that in perspective, Wendell Falls is 4,000 units. So it is as big as Wendell Falls is. It's gonna be about 1,500 acres. To put that in perspective, Wendell Falls is about 1,100 acres. So acreage wise, this is going to be significantly bigger than what you find in Wendell Falls. By the way, I'd love to know y'all's thoughts about all of this. So I was reading, we did an Instagram story on it yesterday, and got a lot of positive comments on that from folks who were excited. I think it was Chatham County's government put out a post on it. I think it was Chatham County's government. It was some organization within Chatham County put out a post on it and was just hammered with negative comments. I get both sides. I really do. If you live in Chatham County and you're used to just this kind of, you know, lifestyle where it's just more rural, and now you're experiencing a company like Disney coming into your backyard, changing that up, changing what you've grown up with, what you've been used to. I get it. I totally get it. So I'd love to know y'all's thoughts. But the community as a whole is going to be, it's going to be massive. 4,000 units, 1,500 acres, and this is going to be a part of the larger Chatham Park neighborhood. Chatham Park is this massive development that there's really no parallel to it in the triangle. It's 8,500 acres. It's really, you know, if you go to their website, it's about a it's projected to be a 40-year project. So this is something that's going to take a long time to accomplish. And this section of it that's going to be the Disney side of it, is a part of that larger development. So, you know, I mean, what do the houses look like? I have no idea. They won't release any of that until we get a lot closer. As of now, we know very little. This is literally all that we know. We do know that, you know, they released some of the amenities that'll be there: pools, trails, recreation areas, like a wellness recreation center, tennis courts, stuff like that. But that's really the extent of what we know. They haven't released anything else. So what about prices? Be positive joining from California. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. So prices are, that's going to be interesting. So I'm going to pull up this document here if I can find it. Let me see. Here we go. So the community that's in California put out a document as part of their HOA expenses. All right, here we go. So what will the prices be here? I don't know when it comes to the houses. We won't find that out for probably several more years. If you look at the average prices in Chatham Park, which is where this neighborhood is going, you're really looking at averages of mid to upper fives. Essentially, is the average of Chatham Park. So the neighborhood that's being built in California by Disney, they're starting at 1 million. And I mean, they probably go up to two or 3 million. I don't think you can look at that pricing and assume it's going to be the same here, because we just don't have that kind of market here. $1 million house in California, generally speaking, Be Positive could probably speak on this. But $1 million house in California, generally speaking, is significantly different than a $1 million house in North Carolina. So I doubt those prices will correlate. I just don't think there's a large enough market for 4,000 units at that price point here in our area. But I bet what does correlate. So this is really interesting. This is talking about their club membership, which I think is like an HOA essentially. They have a one-time initiation fee. This is crazy, of $20,000 and annual dues of $11,000. I would make the assumption that prices for the club membership here would be somewhat similar to this. When you look at what they're trying to do, that they have full time staff that's a part of this neighborhood. I could see the prices being something similar to that. So you're living in a neighborhood and you're paying to be a member of a country club, so to speak. Um, doesn't look like there'll be a golf course, but the costs are essentially equivalent of what you would pay at a local country club or local golf course as far as initiation fees. Actually, a lot of the private golf courses here would be more expensive than this, but next level says sounds like a gated community. Um, yeah, and it very well may be. They haven't they to my knowledge they didn't release any details about that, but it very well may be. But I think when it comes to housing prices, I don't think you can look at what they're doing in California and compare that to what we'll potentially see here. But I think you can look at this club membership um, and assume that those will be somewhat similar because this is pretty much what you get when you join, a club here already. Um, but I mean, just crazy because that's essentially, this is essentially the HOA. Like you're joining into the HOA at these price points at $20,000 initiation fee, $11,000 annual fee, $1,000 food and beverage minimum fee. So yeah, again, this is California. This is their community in California. This is not the community here that they're building. But I think you can look at this and get a pretty decent idea um, of where things will be. So, so why would Disney be even doing this? Obviously, the most obvious answer is cash, right? Money. It's easy for Disney to stamp their name on something like this, develop an area. There's a lot of money in real estate development if you do it correctly. And this is an easy way for Disney to stamp their name on something and make a good amount of profit on it. So and it sounds like this is going to be a thing that they're going to go to quite a few areas with. So obviously California is the first, and then here in our area for the second. I'm sure there'll be several more that they'll announce in the future. But the obvious answer is money. Um, Disney's a business, wants to make money. Um, but additionally, Disney has a pretty interesting history when it comes to um, you know building communities and urban development in general. If you look at what they did in Florida back in the 90s, they built a neighborhood called Celebration. Celebration's still there, still one of the nicer neighborhoods in the Orlando area. If you've ever been, it might give like a little bit of vibes of what's the show where like everything's like a little too perfect, um but that that neighborhood, it's been a long time since I've been there. um it's been, gosh, probably a decade since I've been there, but the neighborhood's really, it's not a lot different than what you experience nowadays with places like Wendell Falls or places like Briar Chapel. This kind of almost perfect manicured feel to it that's almost it's almost an escape from reality to a degree. um so all that to say, like, there's nothing really abnormal about a celebration type neighborhood that Disney built back in the 90s nowadays, because there's a lot of neighborhoods that are very similar to that have, business centers. Like Wendell Falls is a great example. Business centers built into it, commercial spaces built into it, restaurants and um schools and all these kind of things that were kind of revolutionary back in the day. When Disney did that as Celebration, but they're not as revolutionary today because we see that quite a bit. But then you can go back even further, and I'm kind of nerding out with this because I just find it fascinating. But you can go back even further and look at what Walt Disney himself was trying to do in Florida with what became Disney World. He wanted to build a city. And that's what Epcot was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a city. Um, like a city, like a literal city people lived in, and would kind of like push the boundaries of technology and transportation and all of this kind of stuff. And so the whole goal was, obviously that goal didn't become reality. It really died with Walt, because I don't think anyone really fully grasped how to enact that type of model. And so Epcot became, that's what Epcot was supposed to be. Epcot became a theme park instead. So Disney does have a pretty rich history when it comes to urban development. Um, and I think that's kind of leading um, into this, where Walt Disney was pushing for it um, in the, I guess that would have been the 60s, when he was still alive, and Disney World was like in the early planning stages. Disney pushed for it in the 90s with Celebration, and now they're kind of restarting that process with some of these other urban developments. And part of that is going to be here. So I think it's super exciting. Next level said, you say Governor's Club will definitely have some competition coming. Yes, it will. You are 100% spot on. So I think regardless, um, of whether it's gated or not gated, I think this area will. I think this section of Chatham Park will be competition to the Governor's Club. So yeah, that's a fantastic point. I think the one thing Governor's Club would have, that this does not have, is just proximity to places like Chapel Hill and whatnot. This is a little bit further out, but yeah, it's 100% going to be competition. That's a great point. I didn't even think of that. And honestly, so the developer of Wendell Falls and Briar Chapel, I think their name is, I think it's Newland. I could be totally getting that wrong, but I'm 99% sure that's what it is. Uh, but there's going to be competition there. I mean, if you're a Wendell Falls, if you're a Briar Chapel, and something like this is popping up on the map, this is going to be serious competition to them. Um, but yeah. So that's a good point. Randy said, great nerd fact: if Disney applies greener technology, this can become a blueprint for future communities. Yeah, absolutely. And that's that. I mean, I guess that's one thing that the whole point of the original part of kind of Disney being a part of these is kind of push the boundaries. Like, you look at what Celebration was in the 90s, like that's, you see that pretty commonly nowadays. And so, yeah, like kind of be like push some of this, greener technology or whatever it may be a little further, and maybe that'll become the norm down the road. That's a great point. Got a question, is it a buyer's market or a seller's market in Cary and Apex? Um, it's still a seller's market, in both of those areas. Both those areas are going to be slightly more competitive than the Triangle as a whole, just due to, um, they have a little bit less inventory than what you see in general in the market. So carries a little bit over a month's worth of inventory, which essentially means if no other house were to pop on the market, in a month, it would take us a month to work through that inventory. Whereas the Triangle as a whole is a little bit over 2 months worth of inventory. So, both those markets are still sellers markets. They are, the market in general right now is less competitive than what you may probably have in your head of what a seller's market is. Um, Homes are moving a little slower. Seller concessions are, more common than they have been in a very long time, since 2014. So it's a seller's market, but in some aspects, it's kind of acting like a buyer's market. However, I have noticed in the last, um, I'd say probably 2 weeks, the amount of folks reaching out to us, um, either to work with us or kind of just start like conversations, um, has been significantly more than what we had this time last year. And again, those are just kind of internal numbers, but it has me wondering if we're kind of seeing a little bit of evidence of maybe a little bit of rebound in the market, as far as buyer demand. Um, and so, yeah. I mean, those are just kind of like early stage thoughts with that. But yeah, to answer your question, still a seller's market, but kind of acting like a buyer's market in some aspects. So hopefully that's helpful. Um, that's a great question though. But yeah. Let me know. Let me know y'all's thoughts about this Disney neighborhood. I think it's I think it's very what's the word I'm looking for? I think it's incredible that they chose the Raleigh area. I think it's a testament to our area, to the growth of our area. I'm really curious as we get closer to this, what do the homes look like? What do the prices look like? What kind of demand is there for this? Um, to live in a neighborhood like this. I'm sure the prices, I know I gave the average Chatham Park prices mid to upper fives. I'm sure the prices of this Disney segment of Chatham Park, um, I'm sure it's going to be higher than those averages. Um, but yeah, I'm curious. What's the market for this? How many folks want to live in a community like this? How many folks want to pay, to be a part of the type of club in this? So, yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how it works out. So, all right, moving on to the next one. These won't be as interesting of topics. I don't think. I mean, they're still really interesting topics. I shouldn't say. I'm selling my topics short, which isn't what I should be doing. Um, oh yeah, here's the you can find Disney's write up on here, Disney parks, .disney.go.com. I don't know why they have so many so many segments in this website, but it's Disney's like official write up for it. And then they have an actual website that you can check out. So, but yeah. So next topic is conforming loan limits. So these just increased this year for 2024. They are now $766,000. So 2023 they were seven. I think they were 723, I believe, was the conforming loan limit. So, what is a conforming loan? Conforming loans are essentially loans that are backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. So, it's a big deal because that type of loan is going to impact your interest rate. So, anything above the conforming loan limit is going to be considered essentially a jumbo loan. So, if you look at like mortgage rates today, conforming loans, so like a conventional loan was right at 7%. Um, if you look at the jumbo loan, they're a little over 7.5%. So to fall within this conforming loan limit, essentially keeps your mortgage rate at this time about a 0.5% lower on average, which is substantial. So conventional loans are getting pretty close to being back into the sixes. Is if they keep coming down, they'll get there. Hopefully they do. But this is a really big deal because this is going to allow, and knowing this is really important. So when you go to the negotiating table, when you're starting negotiating with sellers, it's important to know these numbers, especially if this is kind of the area of price point that you're looking, because these numbers are, you can kind of negotiate around this. So you don't want to have your loan at 770 and you end up with a 7.5% rate when you could have negotiated $4,000 off that purchase price to get a 7% interest rate, right? So knowing these numbers is really important when you start actually looking for homes and you start the buying process. Another number that came out recently was FHA loans. So the FHA max increased from 472 to 498, which is a big deal. So FHA loans, you can put 3.5% down essentially. Um, and, big deal. 500, almost a $500,000 house, you can get an FHA loan. So in our market, I, I mean, 500,000 is by no means the threshold. I say like 450. 450 is the number in our area that gets you to pretty much any city you want to be in. You're restricted maybe by house size, house type. Maybe it's a townhome in certain areas. Maybe it's a little bit more land in another area. But 450 gets you a lot of freedom in the triangle. So the more that FHA loan goes up, closer to 5, gets you a lot of flexibility in our area at that price point. So anyway, not as exciting as Disney moving to the area, but this is, when it comes to actually buying a home, searching for a home, these are really, really, really important numbers. So, all right, moving on to the next topic. So, those of you who have followed a lot of, Randy said, let me pull that up. He said, I read something about Winston-Salem expanding railroad to connect to the Raleigh corridor. So, yes, that was going to be our main topic tonight. Was there's a lot of news when it comes to um, uh, trains and rail access to various parts of the state and various parts of other states from Raleigh. That was going to be our number one topic, and I am pushing it to next week because of what was announced by Disney. So that kind of like surpassed um, the the rail news. But yes, to hit it a little earlier, essentially the federal government gave a grant to study the essentially the building of a high speed rail system from Raleigh to Winston Salem. I'll get into it a little more next week, but you are 100% correct about that. So wherever you read that at was accurate. It's really cool. It's really fascinating. Let's see. Do you think there'll be more houses coming on the market this month or January? January, 100% January. December is always, always, always going to be slow. It's the holiday. Very few people want to list their house in December for obvious reasons. They don't want people coming in their house in the holidays. If they have kids, they don't have to get up and leave because someone scheduled a showing. And so 100% January. So, everybody calls it the spring market, but really the spring market starts January-ish. Last year we started seeing multiple offers hit in February. That was the first time we ran into a multiple offer. This year was in February. But around that time frame is the spring market. So yeah, without a doubt, January. So if you've been following our videos in the past, you've probably heard us talk about the Hub, which is this large development being built in the Research Triangle Park. It's really going to transform the Research Triangle Park. Really, right now, it's just a place for research companies. The Hub is going to make it essentially a place where you can actually live. There's going to be restaurants. There's going to be activities, and so like it's going to be a really cool development. But what's becoming pretty popular in a lot of these downtown areas, Raleigh's got one, but essentially it's what's called a social district where you can consume alcohol in public, and you're not confined to like a restaurant area. And the Hub is actually applying to make the entire 100-acre area a social district, which would be really, 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 really interesting. I think it'd be really cool. It would kind of free up the area to be Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be pretty unique to have that kind of vibe there at the hub. So I thought that was a cool that was a cool thing. I mean, it's got to be obviously this would have to go through um I believe Durham's because it's I believe it's in Durham County. Most of Research Triangle Parks in Durham County. Um, very small amounts of the Research Triangle Parks in Wake County. Um, but it would have to be approved by the Durham County Board of Commissioners. But I think they were going to present it this week. So anyway, I think that would kind of transform the feel and the vibe of the hub if the entire area was a social district. Um, all right, yeah, the hub in general, the hub's going to be really spectacular. I think it's going to transform not just the Research Triangle Park, but just it's going to add a lot to that side of Durham, um, and make that side of Durham just yeah, it's going to be really cool. So if you ever drive past it, I mean, the development there is just enormous. So I mean, this is I think the first the first leasing I think will begin next, yeah, third quarter of next year. The first apartment building is going to begin leasing first third quarter of 2024. So I mean it's coming right along. So all right, we end it with a there's a development in Cary that's coming in. If you've ever been on this side of Cary, it's off of let me show this article here. It's off of Green Level West Road. It's a pretty rural feeling part of Cary, which for those of you who may not know a lot about Cary, that those are not two words that normally go together. Cary's a pretty developed area. Um, we've got two pretty large, Duke Health areas here, and then you've got this location right here that's going to be a pretty significant development. It's going to have 1,300 multifamily units, 150 um, a hotel room that's about 150 rooms. It's going to have 20,000 square feet of retail, which actually it's not that much of retail, but it's a little bit, and so it's worth throwing that in here. And then 250,000 square feet worth of office space. So if you've ever driven down this road, like it's a lot. It's a lot of land right there, and that land is now on track um, to be, or at least to begin to be developed. So, but yeah, that's all I got tonight. I'm holding off a lot of stuff, especially with the news about the possibility for high speed trains and whatnot. So I will get into that next week. I wanted to dig into the Disney news. Not I mean, Disney news isn't more important than the train news, but I just thought it was just more interesting, at least to me. So but anyway, I appreciate y'all joining in tonight. And that is all I got. But I will see y'all next Thursday. Hope y'all have a good rest of your night and a good weekend. Bye, y'all.